Yeah, just being a happy person to be around goes a long way. This is a who you know industry. And so your attitude is everything.
Welcome to the third and final part of the interview with Rachel about producing. And this time around, we just chat about what it looks like to live life as a producer and also how to find learning opportunities for the skills that you need for producing. I hope you guys enjoy.
Most of the people that I've talked to and kind of have questions about producing don't really enjoy the business side of it when I talk to them. My instinct is to talk to them about that because that's where we are and that's what we've been learning, So I guess, can you be a producer without doing the business side of it, of having to figure out where it's going to go and, where we're at, which is we're making movies that will get distributed, not necessarily the movies that are our heart and soul, Can you be a producer without that side of it?
Oh, definitely. I think that, at its basis level, again, producing is just providing the resources for the creators, and in its own way, that's a kind of creating. And I think that's kind of what has always drawn me to it, is like that is my creativity. I feel creative when I make a beautiful schedule. So it's when the plan is, that's when I feel really creative. And so of course it's possible to do that without doing the business part of it. What gets tricky is how much time it takes. And at some point we all reach the time in our life where we're married and have kids and we have really limited free time to spend on doing things that don't bring income into our life unless you're independently wealthy, in which case, yay you.
Go you. Very excited for you.
We've reached the point where we have had to make that choice to say either this thing that we love has to make some money, or it's going to have to be small enough to be on the side.
It's just a hobby.
Yeah. And when it's just a hobby, we don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to drop on it. And when it's just a hobby, we don't have years of our life to give to it. But if it's an investment vehicle, that's a different story. And so that's the choice that we have decided to make. We love this thing enough to try and make it an investment vehicle and to say, like, yes, we're willing to put sweat equity into something that we think will have monetary value. And we choose to make products that will be consumable by the general public and easy to sell. And, we're choosing to do that because we love this art form, but also we can't afford to not get paid for our time in some way. And we can't afford to make the things that we want to make, so we have to have investors for it. And when you have investors, then it has to have a payoff, which means it has to be a product. So yes. Like, if you find some magic unicorn project that's like paid for in full and everybody on it is happy to not get paid and, those things are taken care of, you have time off from work or you're independently wealthy, then of course you can make whatever you want and do whatever you want. Like, the logistics part will still need to happen no matter what. But those projects are hard to find.
Yeah, well, I think there's a third avenue kind of in there too, in being the type of producer that gets employed by an executive producer.
That is true.
And so you are paid for the time that you spend in the work. It's not going to be a large investment. You're working with other people's money and you're going to be paid for your time, like contractors are. You're going to be a contractor.
Yeah. So the technical term for that is above the line or below the line. And that's a budgeting term. So above the line, typically they're getting paid a large sum of money for something big that they're doing. And they typically also have a stake in the investment. Below the line means like you're a day player, you're a contractor, like you can still be making a lot of money, but you're only there for like your box. Whereas above the line means that the producer and the director, where they're really seeing the project from beginning to end, from script to screen. You can be a just above the line producer or a below the line producer where you contract for other people. But, typically those jobs are going to be more like first AD or UPM or production manager or something like that, where you're working under another producer. And you can absolutely do that. Kind of the difference in your thought about that is when you're above the line and you have a stake in the film, it's kind of like real estate. Yes, you're getting paid for your time, but you have some sort of investment vehicle that will pay back, royalties over time, hopefully, if the movie was made well. And if you're below the line, you're trading dollars for hours, and you run out of hours eventually. So it's really up to how you want to do it and where you want to be. And I think that a lot of people, they end up doing a lot of both. Like they executive produce their own small films, and then they'll go line produce for somebody else on a larger film. And that's really how you learn and grow, is by being in both a smaller position on a larger project and a larger position on a smaller project. You really should be doing both if you want to have a career as a producer, because it gives you a lot of perspective.
You need the growth of actually being the one in charge and making the decisions and that experience, but you also need the ability to learn from people who know more, who have more knowledge and more experience, and just see their mindsets and how they tackle things.
Yes.
And just knowing how to tackle bigger things than maybe you are ready to.
Yeah, and just seeing how they do things, like there's a lot of protocols and like systems and, things already in place in the film industry that you just don't even know how to know about until you're working on a set that has that already in place. So, even if you have to go PA on a union set, if you want to executive produce, but you're still in the short film stage, just going to work as a PA on a much larger film is valuable, because you learn what the accounting department needs and what the producers are actually doing. And, you learn how things kind of flow and fit together. And if you're keeping your eyes open and you're thinking about it, you start to understand why it is that way. And, for the most part, all of the lingo and systems and everything, they're very efficient, because that's what being on set is really all about at the end of the day, is like, what is the most efficient way to make this creative project?
I think that's the creative part for a lot of producers, because creativity is the opposite of efficiency.
Right.
Like trying to just mix water and oil, and it's just all the creative ways that you can possibly do that and make it work.
Yes. I know, Annie, you talk about like a creative box, sometimes. And for me, like there's also a producer's box, and it's like, this is what it will take to make this thing. Can I make that box smaller? I think, and that's something that we talk about as you're screenwriting as well. As I'm looking at what you're writing, it's like, okay, like if we just change this one small thing, it's going to make my life way easier. Like, does it have to be a swan if it could be a puppy? A puppy is way easier. Just it's like thinking through how you're going to make something work that still serves the creative vision, but in the most efficient way possible. And that's really where having a great partnership between a director and a producer is, comes into play, is like the give and take between us, between efficiency and creativity, and we're both advocating for the best end product possible, just from a different view.
Well, I think that's kind of it on the questions that I had, and I think that's a really good place, really good thoughts for people to think about and how it applies to where they're at and the projects that they want to make. Do you have any resources for learning these skills and just learning how to be a producer in general?
I think that one of the best things you can do is honestly just be interning with somebody or working with somebody. I haven't really read any resources that were super helpful to me, and I've had to learn a lot of things just by like Googling it and finding nothing and figuring it out.
Yeah, on that, it doesn't necessarily have to be people interning or learning from people in film. Like you said, event planning also transfers over a lot of the logistical side of things and working with people. You know, that's not necessarily weddings or big events either. It's community events. It's anybody who's planning anything, really.
Yeah, just learning how to manage people, understanding how to guide the flow of traffic, foot traffic, learning what it takes to feed a few hundred people, and, just understanding how to find resources for all that kind of stuff goes a long way, because that's really like most of what I do is like, okay, I have a project. How am I going to feed them? Where are they going to park? Where are they going to go to the bathroom? Like those are the big, the big things. And then from there, you kind of just build on, what does the production need? Like, or do we have wardrobe figured out for this? Do we have makeup figured out for this? Do we have, what logistics are involved with bringing these people on board? So you can learn a lot of that as a PA and just kind of seeing how production handles things. I think also maybe working for a talent agency or any sort of executive assistanting in some capacity will do that. If you're feeling like people skills are kind of where you're having a hard time, maybe like get a receptionist job, somewhere that forces you to talk on the phone with people a lot, and like interface with strangers a lot. I know like waitressing is probably another area. Like you can find jobs that support you learning the specific areas that will make producing easier. Most people who are management level, even at restaurants or, even our brother working at a movie theater, like you have to interface with the public, you have to solve problems, you have to think ahead, you have to make the schedule. It's like any management level position is going to be learning those skills, whether or not it's film specifically. So just look for ways that you can learn those things, that you can experience those things, and ways that you can practice doing those things better. And there are some resources online. I haven't found a lot of great ones. It seems that a lot of what I find is either like really out of date or just like under a name that I don't know or understand. So I find that just building relationships with actual people and saying like, hey, can I take you out to coffee? And like, I have questions, is really the best way to get questions answered. Just get to know people who are actually making things and have the courage to say, I don't understand. Help me. You like admit that you don't know what's going on, and don't pretend that you know everything. And and people are often like really willing to help enlighten you. That's the best resource is other people, and just putting it out there that you really want to learn.
I've heard a lot of people describe producing as kind of the secret sauce. Like every producer has their own secret sauce, and it feels like it's behind the curtain a little bit. And I think some of that's true, but I think it's also because it's so project dependent that you have to talk in vague terms is also part of the problem, which is why working with real people and actual people in real situations is the best way to learn.
Yes, for sure.
It sure was a lot of fun to be able to just visit with Rachel, hear her perspective on things. I hope that this interview provided value to you guys. You learned something new. And if you did get any new knowledge or insights, I would love if you would just leave that in the comments below. It really means a lot to me. Speaking of just chatting with me and giving input into the videos, if you would like to do that, that's something that we do in the private Facebook group, the Homegrown Filmmakers, as well as just share each other's projects, give each other's critiques and encouragement, and just talk about movies, because that's what we like to do. If you'd like to find me on socials, I am the Homegrown Filmmaker. Instagram is probably going to be the best place to find me. I'm a little bit more active on there, and I post more content than I do on YouTube, so if you'd like to see that, go follow me on Instagram. If you would like to be notified when my next video comes out, make sure you to hit the subscribe button. Also, if you could like this video, if you could comment, that would be amazing. It's a great way to support the channel, and it's also free. I appreciate every single like and comment that you guys leave. It really does mean a lot to me. But that is it for now. I will be back in a couple weeks with another video. Until then, stay productive, stay creative, and I will see you next time.